is Jessica Holyfield. I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States. And we're taking a look at ATEEZ's Wonderland dance practice. Now, I am very familiar with this song. I have not seen the choreography to it, but this song is one of the few songs, like I mentioned in a previous video, that I am pretty acquainted with just from the recommendations my Spotify had given me during this era. And I do have a special video that is coming out after I conclude this, that is going to be, it's very special and interesting, and you kind of get to see a little bit of 2020 Jess's attempts at being a music producer in that. So I will spare you the details. You can go find that video there, because it's releasing at the same time as this one, whether it's on Patreon or if it's on YouTube. So I'm definitely excited for that. But I'm excited to take a look at this here. Because I'm very familiar with the song, I do have a better understanding of what kind of timbres, tonal colors, the overall aesthetic of the track. It is it's very pushing of the energy, and that's something that I have been noticing about ATEEZ, that they're very good at in these types of songs, but they haven't quite refined how to pull back or modified this type of really strong combative power and refine it into something that matches more of the overall aesthetic of the track that they're going for, like Wave. So I am looking forward to this. I do know, I think Anjay was a choreographer for this, and so I've seen already improvement from him as a choreographer going from Say My Name into Wave. So I'm looking forward to seeing what is offered here. So we're gonna go ahead and take a watch. We have some backup dancers this time, I think. Is a lot better than the first one. It's still so much unison that is so unnecessary. That was a nice moment. That's nice. So I'm gonna say this. I know that this was an era where we had some injuries take place. I don't know where, I don't know when, I don't know if they were before or after this video. I would say out of all of the choreographies I had seen from ATEEZ so far, this one was the most underwhelming in regards to the type of track that it is. We can chalk it up to maybe I'm very familiar with the track and maybe I'm looking at it from that, you know, because I'm very familiar. I had a natural set of expectations for how this was supposed to be attacked and it just wasn't attacking. So we can equate it to that type of subjectiveness if that's the case. But I'm going to do my best to kind of articulate why I think this way. I also know, you know, it's always been a power struggle for me when I look at Anjay's choreography. I've always felt this way, always, because how he attacks music sometimes it just doesn't feel. It just feels very combative and it doesn't feel practical. It doesn't bring practical choreography sometimes to tracks in general. And it's from a convention standpoint and it's from this type of standpoint. And I've just noticed it by physically doing his own stuff myself. So I have physical experience doing Anjay stuff in a convention circuit for years. So this is why I'm coming at it from that lens. I know Anjay was a part of this. So, man. Man, it could also be because of, you know, the size of the room. The room doesn't appear to be very big for what they need it for. And also, I don't know if it was because of how they themselves were doing it or if that was how it was choreographed. I think that makes a really big difference in what I'm gonna say. The pony, that part was fine to do in 2 and 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So it was nice having your backup dancers here. I think we have about 6 of them is what it looks like. Having this moment, dynamite. That slide through is really nice. Very, very attacking. It sets the tone great, you know? Young and wild. And then we go through. But then what happens? Why don't I have my backup dancers anymore? Why are they standing for about 2/3 of your track and not being used? I understand, like, what needs to happen is they need to be framing your group. They don't need to be just going away forever and then coming back just for 2 8 counts and then running away again. Use them to your advantage. Use the number to your advantage. So I think that's very disappointing that we're not using them the way we need to. This part right here, very muddled. It's reading the same level of discrepancies I saw in Say My Name. And notice, do you see, this is a very obvious discrepancy. Could be because of an injury. Because a lot of you have done a really good job of informing me, this group has had a list of injuries throughout their entire eras of being a group. So I am really trying to come at it from that lens. As I heard, it was specific. Wonderland. I heard the Wonderland era was one where we saw a couple of injuries. So that I do know. And if there's any in the future with very specific songs, please let me know because I do want to approach this objectively, but also understanding, you know, because I'm not going to sit here and be like, you should be perfect even if you have a broken foot. That's stupid, you know? So, but noticing like there's this really obvious discrepancy there. Could be because of an injury or just something. I'm going to chalk it up to that because it looked very purposeful why he didn't go for it. Okay, I understand why we were trying to go for tuts. It feels very martial arts in nature for that. 1, 2, and da-da-da. But also, da-na-na-na. Because you just set and you popped off so aggressively, and then all of a sudden, we're doing more of like a martial arts tutting, and it was disconnected in your tuts. It just looked like tut positions. It didn't have any clarity from going from point A to point B. So that's an issue I noticed with their tutting section. Let's go back to verify. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, just all of that right there. It's just it just feels like content. It doesn't feel like there's purpose behind your tuts. Tutting has the same type of cultural significance that waving does. They both derive as dynamics of a part of popping, at least in the American cultural context of those two styles respectively. So with tutting, you want to tell a storyline, make sure it makes sense, make sure it's clear. When you play with materials or shapes or energies, you need to make sure it's very clear 150%. I talked about that with one of their pre-debuts, but this is I am a bit I'm not frustrated, but I'm definitely in the place of this is not working. That whatever is happening here is not working as well as it could because there's very obvious issues with we're not using backup dancers nearly as much as we should. We shouldn't have them if you're going to not use them for most of your set. That's just being very honest. Most of the time when I see backup dancers used, they're used. I would say Dino's Wait, he did all of it as a soloist until near the middle to the end. But as soon as those dancers came on, they stayed. You know, I just feel like this is a waste of, there's a lot of wasted opportunity with a lot of this. Transitioning through, do-do-do-do-do. Yeah, dun 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 dun. Okay, cool. That was nice. A lot of unison. I've said that about probably every Anjay piece thus far. That's something I still stand behind, regardless of how I personally feel about him as a teacher. When it comes to a choreographer, he does not use levels as effectively as he needs to for a K-pop group. K-pop groups, or groups in general, need levels. You need staging, you need spacing, you need formation changes. You need those things to really help carry your group and set them up for success. We don't want to give them such overly complex choreo, which is not this. This isn't overly complex, so I'm not saying that. There is beauty and a lot of complexity, but I will also counter with sometimes the beauty is of the simplicity, but done in a visually very stimulating way. And that's what we're lacking here. So we have to rely on the content a lot more, but because the content is more intermediate and unison in an execution, and I'm not talking about the boys, I'm talking about the choreography. I don't feel like this choreography set them up for success, especially with not using your backup dancers. Goodness gracious. They would have really done a good job framing here. They would have good job adding extra levels here, giving them a break from having to do a lot of more fuller movement. Those dancers are there to dance, not to sing. They're there to perform. So help them, you know? The swing, that was a great range there. Boom and boom. I love that. That was a great build. That was cool. But because it's all unison, I feel like I couldn't have appreciated that as much as I could have the first time I watched it. Yeah, oh, that was great. You know, I don't know how we felt about having that extra little hit there. Oh, yeah, oh, boom, right into it. Maybe using that hit to start the next phrase, but I know they used it at the end of the phrase. It was still together, so I'll give them that. Going and branching it back out. But right here, anytime we see this circle and there's no level, it's hard for me to catch your feature. It just is, because everybody's around the same height. And so having a sense of, even with that turn, great opportunity to either peel it around or an opportunity to have a level change or something of the nature. It just looks like here's a formation, we're all doing the same thing, which isn't beneficial for your feature. All of them were chose to do their own kind of moment or, you know, there, and that was nice, but because there wasn't a lot of levels to help with that, I couldn't appreciate it. Now we have our backup dancers, boom, right here. They should have been there the whole time. The claps were nice. That little now notice the dancers are getting lower. I love the fact that some of them are trying to ease and help with those levels. That's great. Now this is nice. Mamba way, da da. Go. Now all of this here, I just don't think it's as clean. And that do-do-do-do-do-do, why are we taking so many quick steps there? I don't think that was an effective way to transition. I thought we could have done something very different, maybe do more of a pas de bourrée situation, but I know we see a pas de bourrée, something happen a little bit later. But how they executed it, I don't know if it's a choreographic choice or it was an execution choice, but I feel like it was very restrictive to the type of track that this is. And it could be because of spacing of the state, of like the room that they're in. Home I'm away, yeah, home I'm away. That I noticed that we were trying to do a hinge there, and I know we're trying to hit that way. It didn't hit. That didn't hit because why? It's unison. It's all on the same level, and that's why these are all this is a wasted section. It is. If you take your dancers, you should have had them on the freaking ground doing that. Boom, right here. Had them. Boom, lower right here. That would have created such depth of that section, and it would have made it look so full and push in that energy. It's just a freaking shame is what this section is, because I feel there is so much potential with this that was complete. It just feels neglected. It does, you know, and I think like going through here, boom, right there, that way, you know, it's all unison. No need for this unison to last longer than an 8 count. Bring it back in. Now we're using the same transition to go do-do-do-do-do-do. We could have made a completely different choice on that sound. Maybe a vibration. They are doing a very good job on the vibrations on that. You know, so it's interesting that we're choosing to go to transition. That right there feels very, very restricted, Mamba way. And because we're supposed to build and build and build, it felt like we kind of retracted a little bit on that energy. da 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 da. I really wanted to see that da 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 da. I will say my dancer in white over here, I think, is a really good example of how it should have been done. Da. Notice that there's breath in how he's executing it. If everybody executed it that way, which goes back to, I think ATEEZ is still learning to refine that push and pull on the breathability of the power that they exude. Because for me, they have the puppy energy is what it gives off. Puppy energy, a lot of it, and that really works in your favor for live performances, which is probably why they're known for their live performances. But what happens with that is it's not as refined, and it's harder for us to see the ebb and the flow when they choose to go more legato or to actually groove within something versus really make it super sharp and super heavy. There's not as much breathability there. And so my dancer in white, if you look how he's doing it, I think it's da 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 da. Notice that there's resistance. Da da da, breath, da 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 da. That's the kind of stuff that I really wanted to see from ATEEZ. But of course, you know, there's a lot of circumstances that I feel like are happening here. Like I already talked about, and that da 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 feels like we don't have a lot of spacing here. And then we don't have dancers anymore. Like I understand probably what was going on in their head of like, okay, for the beginning we'll have the dancers and we'll have them go off so ATEEZ has their moment as a feature for the verse, and then for the chorus we'll use the numbers to our advantage, but then we'll have them go off for the verses. I really feel like, you know, it really could have helped continue the elevation, because you know when you have a lot of numbers and then they go away, and then you have a lot of numbers and then they go away, it's not helping us build it effectively. Like I feel like we're kind of just dropping off the energy here. That little skirt, I like that dynamic change. That was nice. That part right there too, it just feels like we're marking a lot of it. Could be because of injuries or something of the nature, but I really feel like a lot of the movement is not giving them opportunity to actually help contribute to the feature. That little do. I mean, I understand the texture choice, but because they stayed the same level the whole time here, that didn't carry and register the way it needed to be. And with the ponies, now we're 1, 2, 3, 4. That little ding, ding, ding. It felt like some of us were going do versus a doom, doom, doom. It wasn't clear that sound that we were hearing. Doom, doom, doom. I really feel like it needs to be like a bom, bom, bom with a more rebound, because that's the type of tone, or that's how that sound echoes off when that gets hit. That's the kind of echo that happens. So having a movement that has an echo effect to it is what it would have really worked in that section. I don't think that's an ATEEZ issue. That was nice where everybody was still and then allowing your feature to have their moment. But notice, I also feel like we had a little bit of stability thing here. I wonder if he just wasn't quite over, so we had to adjust on that slide. But notice, we don't have our dancers here still, and it's a different type of rhythmic pattern, or it's a different type of the top part of the track that we could have used them for. But here we go, we have them now. Right at the end, I love the jump, jump, jump. I mean, that was a good moment, but the switch over, but not everybody was committing through it. I love the slide and the hop through. That was a nice moment. Boom. That was a great showcasing. Great transitions. I do like this here. Now, this was nice here, having this moment. I like this, where you have him up at the top. This reminds me of Megaverse by Stray Kids when it comes to it being in the pre-chorus. Now, they did something slightly different. They had a lot more dancers, but they did frame it very similarly to this. But this came out before that one did, so I don't know if it's a inspiration overlay. Remember, there is nothing new under the sun. Regardless if a crew made it popular, does not mean it is owned by anybody. That is an in general statement. Now, I'm not talking about ATEEZ at all. I'm just saying in general, when there's movements or formations or visuals that happen, there are people who make it viral or popular, but then there are people who incepted it. There are those types of discrepancies that take place sometimes. I will also say that with this gives off that type of energy, but also some of these tracks and some of Stray Kids tracks that I have heard do have similar overlaps, but not enough to where I would call plagiarism on it at all. So I don't want it to come across that way. I just see some similarities of it. I will say they still give more energy than what I had seen from Stray Kids' equivalents of this type of concept. But I will say both of them get some grace in that, because here I feel like there's a huge room spacing discrepancy on top of potential injury. And with Stray Kids, I think it was the quick turnaround time, the fact it was a concert run through, and it was, you know, they were probably doing a lot before that take, and they had to do a lot after. So there's a lot of grace extended to them, and I really more so targeted the backup dancers for that track. Here, I feel like the dancers are not being utilized near as much as they should be should be more successful on the track. Not meaning that they can't hold it down, but sometimes dancers should be used to help project energy so ATEEZ doesn't have to pull all of the work for a lot of the track. And I really feel like we didn't use that opportunity. This was really nice. I like that. It was cool that we went from that straight line, bringing it around to the to transition into more windows. That was a cool choice. I like that. Yeah, that boom, 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 boom. It just wasn't quite as clear there as I think it needed to be. Now we have our backups there. Notice that ATEEZ is still the ones that are heavily carrying the energy on this, and it's not because the dancers aren't doing their part. It feels like the dancers they're not given anything to help ATEEZ besides the choruses. Like that section right there, that kind of energy given to ATEEZ would have been very appropriate for their verses. But for the pre-build, I really think like these dancers could have really helped refine and properly shape them more by helping carry more of that energy in that build. Man, this section was way better. I wish this was in the first course. Way, like that kind of energy, that pull, that feels so communal. Like that looks so freaking sick. It just feels a little bit, not muted, but it does feel a little bit less than that kind of pull of that energy that I know they can pull out. Could be because of the room or other sections. But I like that moment a lot more. Boom, Now we're back over to that da-da-da-da, levels. Give me some levels here. And that energy there, that's fun. But guess what? No levels. Still no levels. My God, Anjay, dude. That's my first level I saw in the whole freaking chorus, and it's the end of it. Okay. So I really like this. This was really nice. The energy and the pull from some of them is really great, but notice we're not using our dancers like at all. There's no point in having them if you're not going to use them. Boom. This is really nice. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Give ATEEZ a freaking break. This is already 2.5 minutes that we could have already had them getting way more breaks in their features. A really good example, I'm going to say this right now, really great example of it's honestly 17's Don Quixote. I do think that one had a bit of a restrictive, there was something off about it, but it wasn't like, it was still refined, it was still good, but I do know that they had to calibrate it to a stage. But if you take a look at that one and I analyzed it, I really do appreciate the fact that we had 17, the features had backup dancers to help showcase the feature, and the feature didn't have to do so much. It allowed them the ability to sing and do what they needed to do for the track. For this type of track, because it's so like really loud and projection, mambo way, you know, like it's very like triumphant, that kind of push of energy here. Your dancers would have really helped. Like this kind of stuff, like what we just see right here, that if that was happening throughout the entire track, we'd be looking at this very differently. I think ATEEZ would have more energy. I think that we wouldn't have as many spacing issues that we're seeing with everybody moving all the time. We would naturally have, I would feel like we could potentially have some levels. You know, that would be great. That do-do-do-do. I really like that choice with the head. Sliding it through. That was a nice little boom, da-doom, and boom, da-doom. That was fun having this moment there. But did you see what all those dancers did? They did, oh my God. This is very frustrating. Very frustrating. I thought we were onto something with Anjay's improvement, and then I really just feel like Anjay dropped the ball on this. Or this is not hitting the way it needs to hit. It's not. It's not, I'm sorry, you know? This was a nice build. I like this. That was fun, but notice that it's very simple on the grooves. And now simple, of course, doesn't mean easy. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying that the energy that they're putting into this, I feel like we can have more interesting choices in it, because up until this point, we haven't had many levels to help us with the digestibility of it. There's not a ton of complexity that the dancers had the opportunity to showcase in order for us to digest that, to help with the lack of levels. I mean, we see a couple of dynamics, but these dynamics just kind of feel like a placeholder versus actually helping us understand the integrity of the track. I feel like there's a huge disconnect between how this routine is connecting versus how it needs to be, you know, and I do like the fact that we tried to tie in a little bit of the tutting from the beginning, but because I had issues with how the tutting not was being done, but because of the sequence of the tutting choices on that part of the music, that's why I'm not as big of a fan of that choice being there. But I appreciate the fact that we're trying to tie in the fact we had it in the beginning. In this point, I appreciate the thoughtfulness. But if you look, no levels. So honestly, it's doing the group a bigger disservice because I can't really see all of them. It just looks like a massive numbers. And the only people that are naturally going to be looking at as a feature is going to be my front center. You know what I mean? And if you look at all of the formations, or pretty much most of them, your feature is really only happening in your front center. So there really wasn't a ton of variety that was set. This wasn't setting ATEEZ up for success. It wasn't. And that makes me very, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I think I'm a little frustrated at the fact that this song, and because I know the song and I appreciate the song without ever having needed to see the routine. I really like the build. I like the energy. I like the pull. I love their tone, the tonality that these guys have on tracks. I really like and I appreciate. But we're not going to sit here and not talk about how much of a disservice not using the dancers as much as you need to for asking them to do this, or for having them on this, as well as, especially if there were people who were, sorry for the effects, especially for people who, you know, a lot of times, I mean, I feel it's just kind of, yeah, that's just, I feel like I'm kind of beating a dead horse at this point. You guys know how I feel. You guys, this is not top 5 best choreo from ATEEZ, and I'm not blaming ATEEZ for that. That's just kind of my very cordial, but kind of honest, this is my very honest opinion about this. I do know there's a very good chance that this was 2019. I didn't hear this track until about 2020. So, I mean, this is still, it's still in the era before the world changed, you know? So I think that I'm very curious as to how things will change as things change. Like, I'm curious how the choreography is going to change, how they are going to change, all of this stuff. But this is not my favorite, you know, and it is disappointing. I do like that. I like the intention of that. I just don't feel like it was appropriately placed because we didn't have any depth to this formation at all to really help us see that outside of it just being an attempt at hitting your music. So this was nice having this little moment here. I do like that pull. That was fun, but notice we didn't, I do love the energy. I'm appreciative of that. But there wasn't a lot of dynamics happening in the back that I could see. And I'm not going to chalk it up to the tripod. You can tell a difference whenever levels are being used or not. The drop down, that was a nice moment. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. It just feels more like movement. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. So it goes back to my guy in the white t-shirt as my dancer. He is the opportune person you would need to look at when it comes to how this choreography should ideally look. I think it should look like that, but I don't think, because I've already said this once already, Anjay doesn't teach, he's a choreographer, it's a different tool set. But even then, there's a couple things here that whenever you do choreography, you need to be mindful of. You need to do formations, you need to do dynamics, you need to do levels often throughout your piece, not just once in the verse, once in the chorus, once in the dance break. Having those, it allows time to breathe, and it allows time for depth and digestibility in your track. And that's what this is. These guys are singing at the same time, and if they don't get a break, which I mean, you teach their own stamina, this or the other, that's fine. But if you're using backup dancers, use them to allow more breaks for your main members, because that'll help them actually feel like they're being helped in the track. I just feel like the dancers were an accessory. They weren't there to actually contribute anything, and I don't blame the dancers for that. So this very tail end, they're finishing, and they finish. So, I mean, you can tell they're out of breath. That's fine. They worked really hard. I can tell they worked hard, and I also know there's probably a lot of issues and injuries and things of the like. I understand that. I am very hopeful, if I see another Angers choreography in the future affiliated with ATEEZ, that I see some progress in these elements that I became kind of frustrated over, at the fact that it really, there's a lot of this stuff that's happening that should not be happening in this way. So I hate sounding, I hate being passionate about something that's so critical, but I think it's so important, especially seeing, I know how hard ATEEZ is working. I've been watching their stuff. I know how they can be in sync with each other but maintain individuality. I've seen them in peak performance, and I've seen them kind of struggle through. The common denominator, being very real right now, the common denominator that I have seen so far with some of the lagging of the execution of content, there's been a choreographer that has been the common denominator in all of that. Now, you can either take that statement as me being objective. I don't know if I'm actually being objective there. You're just hearing symptoms of my personal feelings. Because I have my own kids, I have my own students, who have been taught under him before. And so it is really hard for me to disconnect from that. So I'm just being very real. You're seeing a very human Jess here, and I'm very empathetic to this, but I'm also, as an educator, as a choreographer myself, I really feel like we dropped the ball on a lot of the potential that this could have had. It could have had Pirate King potential, but it fell short. And I think a lot of it is not ATEEZ's fault. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see any more ATEEZ reactions, XG, K-pop, dance content of the like, I have that all over Patreon as well as YouTube. For those of you who are fans of ATEEZ, I want to know everything. Please put it in the comments of this video. Were there injuries? Were there certain circumstances when it comes to the making of? Did they have a making of choreography video for this or something? I really would like to know that. Or if there's any live performances of this, that would be really helpful for me to take a look at, to see if there's any differences, maybe having more room on stage, maybe the energy of the crowd presents this differently. I want to know. Please tell me, because I hate leaving a video on a more negative note. You know, it's regardless if it was the choreographers or the dancers or the group themselves. I always want to figure out or find the best version of the group, and most of the time I'm able to find, with dance practices, I'm able to see a lot of the beauty and the artistry of choreography. But sometimes when I feel like I'm missing something very key to the group for that particular track, like in this case, I really want you guys to help me be able to appreciate it in the way that it needs to be appreciated. So if you could help me with that, I would greatly appreciate it. Once again, I am Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.